Fala pessoal, tudo bom? Trevor aqui com um vídeo especial para o canal Relógios Sem Fronteiras. A feira de Geneva Watch Days está prestes a começar e eu aí tive a sorte, a possibilidade, a oportunidade de falar com algum pessoal aí de algumas marcas. Então hoje temos uma apresentação exclusiva diretamente do pessoal do MB&F, que vai fazer a apresentação desse relógio que a gente está vendo na tela, o HM9, realmente uma peça incrível da Alta Horologia, onde realmente os valores, os conceitos são levados ao extremo, outros conceitos, outras ideias eles realmente apresentam com essas máquinas. Então vai ser muito interessante escutar um pouquinho hoje a concepção desse relógio e nos próximos dias vai ter mais vídeos, mais informações sobre Geneva Watch Days, tá bom? Pessoal, espero que gostem do vídeo. Até a próxima.
Yes, absolutely. No, so thanks to you for having me. It's always a pleasure to talking to you. So I'm Arnaud. I'm in charge of the communication for MB&F. As you said, it's busy times because next week we have the Geneva Watch Days. And so tomorrow, just ahead of the watch days, we are releasing a new machine, which is the horological machine number 9 Sapphire Vision. So it's actually a new variation of an existing piece that we launched 2 years ago in 2021. You might be familiar with the first generation of the HM9, which was released in 2019. It was first in titanium and red gold. And then 2 years ago, released this insane machine, totally crafted in sapphire. There was 4 editions of 5 pieces each. There was a purple, blue, black, and a rose gold edition. And so we're gonna release this new HM9 Sapphire Vision that I'm gonna show you now.
Fantastic! Yeah, I can't wait to see that. But just before we jump in and the pieces, if you just talk a little bit about Geneva Watch Days before we talk about the watches, because it's a new concept which started out recently, and I think MB&F was one of the founding companies, right?
Absolutely. So the Geneva Watch Days is a pretty new fair that started. I think this year should be the 4th edition, and it basically started out of a discussion between Max and a few other CEOs that said, you know, it was during COVID time that all the fairs there were no more fairs, and we wanted an event that could bring people together in Geneva. We decided to create it in August because usually the weather is perfect. We all go into the different hotels of Geneva, in the center of Geneva, and it's basically a very informal and good vibe fair where most of the brands present the novelties. We meet press, we meet retailers. So it's similar to those well-known established fair, but it's a bit more. Now it's getting bigger. At the beginning, we were only maybe 20 brands participating. This year, it's going to be above 40 brands, between 40 and 50 brands. So it's a very good, nice format. The past few years, people couldn't really travel because of COVID, but now we can see that more and more we have people joining for the event. So every night you basically have a central pavilion where every night you have events where everybody is going at the same place, and then during the day you do your presentation either in your boutique if you're in the center of Geneva or in the different hotels. For example, we take over one of the suites at the Beau Rivage Hotel, and we make our commercial meetings, press meetings. We meet some clients. So it's really an informal, good vibe, nice event just to talk about watchmaking.
Yeah, nice and open because, as you said, you see clients, press, enthusiasts. Everybody can go and see. So that must be very special days.
Exactly, absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you have? Do you have anything coming up for? You mentioned that you have one piece which will be introduced before the fair.
Exactly. So we are gonna launch it actually tomorrow, so August 24th. So it's basically a new variation of, as I mentioned before, an existing piece. It's the HM9 Sapphire Vision. So it's a It's a caliber that was developed in 2019. We launched it first in 2 different variations in titanium and red gold. And then 2 years later, in 2021, we launched this Sapphire Vision up version. So there was 4 limited edition of 5 pieces only. They were either in white gold, so the white gold frame with a purple finishing. You had a white gold with red gold finishing, and then you had 2 red gold editions with either a blue finishing or black finishing, so on the movement. And so this new variation here is the white gold blue, and it's again limited to 5 pieces only. So there will be another version in yellow gold with a green finishing on the movement, and it will also be limited to 5 pieces only. As you can see here, the entire case is crafted from sapphire. And just to give you an idea, so I went to visit our supplier, our friend who is crafting those sapphire parts. And just this part here on top takes more than 200 hours to machine. So they basically go on Monday morning to put the block of sapphire in the machine, and then they come to pick it up on Friday evening. And then the week after, they can start to do the end polishing. So everything has to be polished by hand because of all the curves. I don't know if you can see them clearly on the video, but
oh yeah, we can see it now.
Pretty crazy to polish. And imagine that if anything goes wrong during the polishing, then you need to start all over again. So there is a lot of issues because it's very fragile. So very often they would break those sapphire, and that's just one of the crazy features of this watch. You can also see the 2 fully independent balance wheel here on top, and they are fully independent. And in the center here, you can see a differential, which is basically making the average of both balance wheels. Meaning that if this balance wheel here would be an average of plus 4 seconds per day, and the other one would be minus 2 seconds, the differential is going to make the average, which is bringing more precision to the movement.
Fantastic.
And they're fully independent. You see from time to time 2 balance wheels like that. Sometimes they're in resonance. Some other brands, they have this resonance, but here, I don't know if you can see clearly with the video, but they are fully independent. Mm-hmm. So they're not beating at the same rate. And then that's why you have this differential in the center making the average.
So the differential is the one that feeds the hours, the seconds.
Exactly, which you have here. And to have the minutes and hours at the vertical indication, you need to have conical gears. And so you need to have all the power going from the balance wheel here in the back, all the way to the front of the watch, up to give the energy to show the time.
But do you have a seconds display hand or just the hours and minutes hand?
No, just the hours and minutes.
Just hours and minutes.
Here, exactly.
Because of the differential, because you have 2 different main springs, so
exactly
it works directly.
Exactly. So that's really the heartbeat that you usually have, and over there you have the 2 frequency, which are average thanks to this piece in the center. It's basically the same movement. I don't know if you remember the LM2, Legacy Machine number 2, where you can also see those 2 balance wheel on top with the differential as well. So it's basically the same complication on a very different machines.
Fantastic.
And this came actually from the duality of Philippe Dufour, if you're familiar with this piece. So Max had a dinner before to launch MB&F one day with a collector who was wearing one of the duality from Philippe Dufour. And then he flipped the watch, saw those 2 balance wheels at the back, and just fall in love with the complication and said, okay, one day I need to create something with those 2 balance wheels. And that's basically, an honor, just a piece that he created in honor of Philippe Dufour's duality.
Fantastic. So the differential in the middle. So does that work as a second? I mean, or it doesn't even have second hands. It goes straight to the minutes and hours. I don't know if I can
So basically, on every single movement, you have de facto a second hand with the escapement, which is always moving. But then this one here, you sometimes the second at the end of the day, you can have an average of plus minus a few seconds on the escapement, depending on the rate of the beat. And this one, the differential really makes the average between the two rates, and that's how you gain some precision. At the end of the day, with MB&F, we never do anything for precision. We just do stuff because it's cool and because it's beautiful. So we wanted to have those two balance wheel and the differential because it looks cool and it is beautiful. And on top of that, we could say that you would gain some precision. At the end of the day, if you want to be more precise, you don't do a watch with this shape. You have much smaller balance wheels. You have they would beat much faster the rate. So we never do anything aiming for the best precision on the market, or there are people that will be much better than us for that. The only thing that we want is to have cool pieces which looks cool and beautiful, and that's what we did with this HM9 Sapphire Vision.
And only 5 pieces of that one.
Only 5 pieces of that one, exactly. So 5 pieces of that. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, how long does it take to produce? I mean, if just part of the case is over 200 hours, how long does it take to produce a complete piece?
So it's always difficult to count exactly the time that you need, because basically most of the watches have some research and development time that you need to take into consideration. So I was mentioning before Stephen McDonnell and the perpetual calendar and the sequential Evo. So for example, these pieces, they took about 5 years to develop just for the LED part. And then once you have this, which is ready, then you need to start creating all the components, and every single component has a life of its own. So every single component, I mentioned the sapphire part, which takes more than 200 hours to machine. But within the same movement, you have the bridges, the balance wheel bridges, which are super complicated to finish as well. So that's all the work that takes, weeks, months to develop. And then once the logistic team is done with all the components, they would assemble it, give it to the watchmakers, and they would start working on the assembly part. But from the first scratch to having the piece in your hands at the end can take up to 5 years.